studios in New York City. This is Charlie Rose.
Since her debut in 1990, Mariah Carey has sold more than 115 million albums worldwide. She is the top-selling pop artist of the 1990s. Her latest single, Heartbreaker, is her 14th #1 song, a feat that is rivaled only by the Beatles and Elvis Presley. Her ninth and latest album is Rainbow. It is in the stores today. I am pleased to have her at this table for the very first time. They have sent out 5 million copies of this album to record stores across America and maybe in the world. I don't know whether this is just domestic first or whether they all go out at one time.
I don't know. I'm pretty involved in the whole process, but it stops when I get to the distribution thing. I'm not quite aware of all of it.
You're involved in the process, meaning what?
Well, meaning that from the inception of the song, you know, writing it, co-producing. I pretty much kick the producer out of the studio when I do my vocals because I have this thing where I only like to be with my engineer and do my vocals alone. And mixing, I'm there for mixing. Mastering, I have to approve it.
Do you like doing that?
It's not that well, yeah, I mean, I love writing. I love the evolution of a song. I love doing background vocals. I do most of my own background vocals, or, you know, I love doing arrangements, background arrangements. That's kind of like my bag. But it's a little bit annoying because I have to be so involved, even on the level of, like, mastering, where I might be doing 1,000 other things, but if they don't get the approval from me, they can't send it out, and a lot of times people won't do it exactly how you want it. So I've learned that if you want it done the way you want it, you got to do it yourself.
It's a very important lesson to learn. You're not yet 30. That's a very important lesson to learn before you get there. This album, you just told me, was not even in your imagination until, what, 3 or 4 months ago?
Right, and I mean, I've done an album a year. It was, I mean, they don't count the Unplugged thing because that was not an album, or the Christmas album. I don't know. I don't make up the rules. But every year, basically, since I was just out of high school, I've been in the studio making albums, doing this whole thing. And I pretty much take the same amount of time, at least 6, 8, 9 months to do it. So I've been in the studio every day of my life, basically, this whole time. But this album, I was actually recording songs for a movie called All That Glitters that's been in development for me for like 2 years at this point. They're finally happy with the script, finally ready to get going. Kate Lanier, who wrote Set It Off and What's Love Got to Do With It, has written the screenplay. And it's musical, but it's not like where you burst into song for no reason. It's actually got a really nice, moving story. But I was writing the music for that, and I had my friend DJ Clue gave me it's actually a loop of a Stacey Lattisaw record from 1980, the movie set in the early 80s. And I had this song, and I finished it, and we were all working together. Jay-Z came in, and he did the rap on it. It was like, he's, you know, an incredible artist. So I was just like, wow, I have this record. I put a summer record out every year. The movie is pushed back. Should I do an album? And then I said, well, I have some songs I've already written for the movie. Should I just incorporate those? But I ended up writing all new songs. And I went to Capri, and I pretty much lived in the studio night and day for 2 months.
In Capri?
In Capri. Because if I had to be...
I feel sorry for you.
Well, come on. I mean, seriously, wouldn't you rather record in Capri than here?
Yes, of course. That's my point.
So the point is, if I was, you know, to get this done, I had to completely isolate myself, and I wanted to also experience the summer. I've never been there. And it was one of the most incredible places. It helped my voice so much, just the humidity, the not, you know, the lack of pollution. And I went and I recorded basically like the skeleton of each track and wrote the basics with each person I was writing with, and then took the tracks, did my vocals, went back.
Now, just for my information, have you been writing songs all your life? Or,
Yes.
For most of your career, you've been writing a good percentage of your stuff?
I've written everything but the cover songs that I've done since the beginning. Only I did I'll Be There, and on this album I have a remake of Phil Collins' Against All Odds, which was actually one of my favorite songs growing up. And I saw him in England. We were both at the same show, and I didn't know if he knew I had done his song or not, and I'd never met him. And so I went up to his dressing room and I was like, "Excuse me,
yes,
Mr. Collins, I just want you to know that I did your song, and I hope you don't hate it," and stuff like that. And he was like, is it for an album? And we talked about it, and he stayed and watched my performance, and he was really, really generous and nice about it, and he was really excited about it. So that was very flattering.
You worked with David Foster on this?
Yes, I did, for the first time, actually. David Foster and Diane Warren and I collaborated. And Diane she's one of the biggest songwriters in the world. She doesn't collaborate with people, but she collaborated with me. I'm like the first one she's collaborated with in like 2 years, and she's a very unique individual. And she's very lovable, sweet person. She's really talented. So the reason that I like to collaborate is because melodic ideas come to me so quickly, but I can't play. I'm horrible on the piano. Horrible. Well, sometimes I'll come up with a good one, like Vision of Love started with me playing. It was my first song that I ever put out. Because I'm so bad, I'll sometimes do something that'll sound okay because I don't know what I'm doing. But if I try to match the melodic ideas that are coming to me, I lose them when I'm trying to figure out the chords. So I like to work with great piano players, someone like David Foster, or even Diane, who doesn't fancy herself to be like this great piano player, but she's a great songwriter, so she can pick up what I'm hearing really quickly. And Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis.
I was going to say, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, two legends.
Two legends that I've been admiring forever. And actually, they're going to be working on this soundtrack for All the Glitters as well, because it's set in the 80s, and they basically owned every song of that decade.
Missy Elliott?
Missy Elliott and I worked together on the Butterfly album. We wrote the last album I had. We wrote a song called Baby Doll, and we worked together on this album with Debrat also, who's actually one of my really good friends. She's been there for me.
Your mother tells the story that your mother, who sang opera,
yes,
loved opera,
yes,
sang opera, that she would be practicing, and you had an instinctive ear, and you could pick it up and even sing it in Italian. Yeah?
She tells me that. I do have
you don't remember it. She
I have
just
a
tells
vague recollection. She tells the story all the time. I don't know if it's me remembering the story from hearing it so many times, or remembering actually doing it.
Say that.
Yeah, but she said she was doing Rigoletto, and she made a mistake, and I said, "No, Mom, it goes like this."
But where did this come from? This great? Is it just simply because you inherited from your mother, or something else? It made you so early on say, "I want to be a great singer."
Well, I think that definitely music is something that is passed down. I mean, somewhere along, usually most musical people have a relative or someone that was
and music's in their house, and they play and listen and sing.
Right.
And,
Right. But my mom definitely exposed me to music at a very, from the time I started talking, I was singing. My brother and sister, I have an older brother and sister, they were playing Al Green, Stevie Wonder, all the, whatever was hot on the radio, basically R&B I was hearing in my house. And I just always loved it. And I was always an insomniac, even as a little kid. And I used to steal the radio the portable radio from the kitchen. And I would sneak and I would listen under the covers and I would sing. And that's the only thing that could get me to go to sleep was music would comfort me and get me, get me out of there.
What kind of economic status did you have growing up in Long Island?
Well, when my parents were married, I think they were, they did fairly well. But when my mother and I always want to say when my mother and I grew up, I feel like we grew up together, but when I was growing up, my parents were divorced since I was 3. Yeah. So she was no longer singing. She used to sing with City Opera, but at that point she was no longer.
Your mother's Irish?
Yes, my mother's Irish-American. My father is African-American and Venezuelan. So I'm a combo plate of many things. People don't understand that, but whatever.
We'll talk about it. So you're growing up, but your dad leaves.
Well, my parents split, yeah.
And your mother's responsible for how many kids?
Well, my brother and sister moved out by the time, my sister was married by the time she was 15, and my brother moved out of the house when he was, I guess, 16 or something. So I was like, my mom basically and I were together from the time I was well, born, but alone together since I was like 7.
What influence did she have?
She had a huge influence on me because she was very, she instilled a belief in me that I don't know that many parents could have done. I mean, she would say, don't say if I make it, say when I make it. I mean, since the beginning of my life, I've been saying I want to be a singer. So she was saying, well, don't say if I become a singer, say when I become a singer, when I am successful, when this happens. So she's named me Mariah Carey with no middle name because she said that she thought it was a good stage name. So basically she's had this planned.
Yeah. But she had a plan that her daughter would be great.
I guess so. I mean, she had this plan.
But it didn't, but you bought into it in a sense. It was something that you grew to want as much or more than she ever wanted.
Oh, definitely. My mother is not a stage mother.
She wasn't a stage mother.
No, at all. My mother was kind of highly unconventional. I mean, she always had me around really artsy types, theatrical types, you know. She actually, it was great because she allowed me to develop my own personality and my own sense of self and become very independent. I was on my own a lot. She worked 2 jobs at one point, and I had to stay home alone a lot. We didn't have a lot of money, but she always made things festive. Like Christmas was always, no matter what, she had to wrap up 100 little things. She would do it. You know, she made me, you know, like the love of holidays, the love of music, the love, you know, a lot of things that are really positive. And I'm also really an optimistic person. So I think that a lot of that comes from her.
Yeah. But if you want to be a singer,
right,
what do you do? I mean, do you take lessons in high school? I mean, how does, it's awesome how many albums you have sold. I mean, when you think about it, you're way up there above everybody except the Beatles and Elvis. More than Michael Jackson in the 1990s, more than, it's stunning achievement to sell as many albums. I mean, I'm sure you've done more than you ever imagined or fantasized.
I never knew about, you know what, I only thought about, I want to hear my song on the radio. Like, I remember listening to the radio, I was a radio freak. And so my whole thing was, I just can't wait to hear my song on the radio, you know, and that was my goal. I didn't know about gold albums, platinum albums, selling records. I didn't even think about outside America. I mean, I thought about my hometown, hearing myself on the radio, you know, and then it's amazing because you write these songs and then you go to countries where they don't speak the same language as you and you see people singing the lyrics back to you. And it's this amazingly rewarding feeling to think of. Last night when I was doing the TV special at my junior high, I was walking through the halls and I was looking at the cafeteria and I was remembering the girl who used to go there, me, you know, as an insecure little 7th grade kid who had this dream of being a singer that I didn't talk to my friends about, you know, and I was very insecure about a lot of things, about, you know, my looks. I was insecure about just being different, you know, but music was always something that I knew I had that made me special. And so it was sort of making me a little bit emotional, thinking like, wow, I really did this, you know.
Who was the first person to tell you, other than your mother, that you had a great voice? Because, you know, you're noted now for having a voice that ranges over 5 to 7 octaves, right?
I don't know what it is, especially today. It's probably less than 1 octave because I didn't get any sleep. But no, actually, I don't know, because even though my mother was a classically trained opera singer, I'm so the opposite. I mean, I'm so sing it however I feel like it. I don't read music, you know. I write songs, but I mean, I tried to study piano. I'm just so it's funny because I'm a perfectionist and I'm totally disciplined when it comes to my work. But when they started to try and make music into work, like where you had to figure out technical stuff, I just had a block because it's so the other side of my brain. But the first person who ever told me, and I'll never forget this, is a girl named Maureen. And I was 6 years old, and we were walking back from school. And we were both singing a song from school because we were in this play. And she stopped singing, was listening to me, and she said, when you sing, it sounds like there's music behind you. And I never, ever, ever forgot that, because that was like the first non-family member who ever gave me a compliment or acknowledged my singing.
Something made you, at some point, this is an oft-repeated story, to go, I guess, when you were a teenager, and hand a demo tape to Tommy Mottola?
Actually, what happened was I was a backup singer right out of high school for Brenda K. Starr, who had a hit song called I Still Believe, which I actually recently did a remake of. And she took me under her wing. She was like a big sister to me, and it was great because a lot of people wouldn't have been like that. with someone that they might have felt threatened. You know what I mean? She didn't. She was just like always like, you got to listen to my friend Mariah. She writes her own songs. These are her songs. You know, she would like tell anybody and their brother, like, try and give people my demo tape. And she wanted me to give her some of the songs that I had written. I was like, I really want to do my own thing. I want to get a deal, blah, blah, blah. So I actually had a deal that was almost in place with Warner Brothers. And it was through a producer that I was signed to at the time, you know, with songs that I'd written mostly when I was in high school. And they wanted to use some of the songs for a movie that they were doing called Lean on Me, if you ever saw it with Morgan Freeman.
Right.
And so so I was thinking that everything was cool and everything was set. And Brenda called me and said, you got to come to this party because, you know, it's going to be a lot of executives there. And I was like, well, you know, I already have this thing in place. I'm not sure what's going on. So I decided to go. And I went to her house, and I had only one dress. She lent me clothes. She lent me this little mini skirt, and all I had was like my little Averex jacket that I used to wear in high school, which basically looks like a cheerleading jacket. You know, I mean, I looked probably 12. And the only thing she couldn't, but with this little skirt on and this whole little done-up thing, the only thing she couldn't lend me were my shoes because my feet were too big. So I had on sneakers with this whole ensemble. Yeah. So it wasn't banging, wasn't a very good look, but I guess it, whatever, caught some people's eye because they were asking me, who's the girl? They were asking Brenda. And she actually wanted to hand the tape to Jerry Greenberg, who she knew from, I think it was Atlantic Records. And she brought me there to meet him. And instead, Tommy came up and grabbed the tape out of her hand. Oh. When she went to, she said, here, Jerry, and Tommy snatched it out of his hand. So he took the tape, and it didn't even have the label on it the right way. It just said Brenda K. Starr rehearsal. And he listened to it, and he didn't really believe that it was the same kid who he saw in the party, you know. And he came back, but I was already
the story is
gone.
he put it into his limousine and put it on the CD player in the limousine and turned around and came back.
Yes.
And by that time, you had gone.
I had gone. And it was that night, so many things happened because Brenda and I went to a producer's house named Arthur Baker, who did a lot of songs, and he was very, you know, big producer. And he was playing my tape and calling everybody, going, you got to hear this girl, you got to hear this girl. And so everything happened for me, like in this one crazy moment.
This was about 89, 88?
Yeah. So it was like all this stuff was going on, 88 actually. Yeah. All this stuff was going on. And it was at one moment, and then Tommy actually located me through her management.
And so when he found you, what did he say?
Well, he called up my answering machine. I lived with about 4 girls on a mattress on a floor above this club. And it was a horrible place. We had floods, fires, everything. But one of the girls is still one of my best friends. And we had this ridiculous answering machine. We were acting like complete fools. And, you know, never expecting the head of a record company to, you know, call.
Leave a message, yeah, right.
And so I get this call. It's like, yeah, it's Tommy Mottola, CBS. Call me back. Left the number, hung up. And so we were listening to it, flipping out. But, like, more so than that, we're just flipping out that they heard this ridiculous message. Yeah. So my mom and I went up there. I didn't have a lawyer. I didn't have anything. And, you know, worked it out.
Worked it out. Made a deal.
Made a deal.
But did he say then?
I had a lawyer when we made the actual deal, but at that point.
But did he say, you have something, you know, this is the best voice I've heard in a long time, or anything like that?
Yes, well, see, because I already had the thing going on with Warner Brothers, then they stepped it up, and I had a meeting with the heads of the whole company, and they were like, we're going to do this too.
This is when you had not recorded a single album. This was before Mariah Carey was even the idea of the first album.
No, but it was the idea because a lot of those songs ended up on the first
Mariah
album,
Carey,
which was great because we had produced this demo, my ex-writing partner, and I had produced this demo, and it had songs that became #1 songs actually on the demo. So they could hear not only the songs, but they also heard the voice. So it was like most people, maybe they have a look, maybe, I mean, I'm not trying to be self-promoting, but just I'm telling the story. I had the whole package because the demo really actually sounded good.
And they were creating somebody to come on for a whole new generation, the idea.
Right. But see, my point was the demo showcasing the vocals and having the songs was a big plus, you know, so it helped me out a lot. And also then what happened was when Warner Brothers and Sony began, you know, kind of like then it creates this bidding war kind of thing. Right. But
CBS Records was sold to Sony.
Yes, right, I think around that time. Right. So, but he definitely made me believe that he believed in me as much as I believed in myself, which was a huge decision-making factor in me going there, because I would have been at Warner.
In Warner's, yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me, because so much has been written about it, what difference he made in your rise to have this extraordinary decade, so that you and, I guess, on the male side, Garth Brooks, are clearly, by a wide margin, the most predominant vocalist of the decade.
Well, I think definitely in the beginning, there was a lot of care taken in making sure that the imaging and everything else and putting me with certain producers was right. And he definitely focused on making sure people saw me as a vocalist. I mean, the songwriting was hugely important too, but I don't think even today people recognize
I don't either.
that.
We'll talk about that.
But I think he took a lot of care with the launch and making people, see me as the next big thing. And we were partners. We worked together. We really. I mean, I wrote the songs. I was definitely, even though in the beginning, I think my sound was definitely more watered down on the first album because I was put with producers who were already big, slick, well-known people. And so it was more, I actually like my demo tapes better than how the album came out. But because they were more real, they were more, it was more of an individual sound rather than like a slickly produced thing. I had more of my own identity.
Right, yeah, I got you.
So, but anyway, I feel that, he knew my capability as a writer. He knew basically it's like, okay, I think on this album we need a song that's the big ballad, that's the pop ballad. Do that, how about that? Okay, I'll write that.
Now, did you write that, most of those?
I wrote every song that I've ever done except for the remakes that I've done, and except for the duet with Whitney Houston, because that was already written, and Jeffrey Katzenberg called us in.
Yeah. All right, so here, all of a sudden, they have decided that you can be something very, very, very special, and Tommy takes the great interest in your development. There was this notion, and because you're here, it's important to say it, that somehow he was more of a Svengali. He was somehow directing this career and fashioning you. And my curiosity is whether that's true or not true, or whether he simply was more like a partner, and that you had your identity, and you had your strength, and you had your songs, and we miss it if we think, because I think Tommy has said this, to think that Mariah is not her own person is not to know Mariah.
Right.
Tell me the truth.
Well, I am definitely my own person, much more now than I was a few years ago, but we were definitely partners creatively, but partners don't always have the same opinion, and I often would want to go into one direction or release singles that I felt were more close to my heart, like more R&B or things that I felt.
Right. And you were more into rap than...
Yeah, I mean, it's like the difference between sitting in a car and actually he was pretty tolerant, letting me play Wu-Tang Clan and Tupac rather than listen to, what he wanted to hear.
Some pop artists.
Yeah, but I mean, yes, we were partners in the sense that because I was the person writing the songs in there, very involved, we were partners. He had a very strong opinion about a lot of things, and when I look back, I sometimes think, well, I know that I didn't agree with a lot of those opinions, but then again, I was always writing the songs, I was always doing those things, I was always crying out to be my own person. But I think when people think about the Svengali thing, it was more who I was surrounded with, or surrounded by. It was more that...
Surrounded by meaning?
Meaning people who were in control of my career.
The lawyer, the producer, the whatever.
Right. People who... Right.
Who were all colleagues and friends of his.
Right. So because of that, and because of... It was more like... fashioning the look and the image and keeping it one way, which was non-threatening, which was not necessarily me, which was not necessarily the most fun thing to do, which is sort of why when I had the whole Butterfly album, which was symbolic of me moving on and things like that. People were like, whoa, she's dressing sexy, and oh, what's she doing, and she's trying to make a statement. It's like, look, I've always been like this. You can see pictures of me when I'm 6 years old sitting on a beach posing. You know what I mean? That was always me. But it was toned down for a number of reasons, some of which I probably were more personal than professional. But and it did work in the beginning for me to be really plain and simple and non-threatening and let people focus on my voice. So I think that worked. But after you do that and you're growing up at the same time, you want to be able to express yourself musically. You know, you want to look the way you want to look. It's fun. You made enough videos at this point, you know, with curly hair, you know, in a field or standing in a dress. It's like, you know, can I move on a little bit and grow, expand?
I want a lot of things to talk about here, but I mean, when I look at you now,
yeah,
this is the way you want to look. This is the way you feel. This is who Mariah sees in her own soul.
Right.
The way you look now, the way you sing now, the kinds of songs you choose,
right,
are where, you know, you have, after the divorce from Tommy and seeking out new associates, in a sense, have moved to a place. How would you characterize it?
Musically, or
musically and personally?
Well, I think that I actually did collaborate with. I mean, I worked with Old Dirty Bastard in 1995 when I was still in that whole thing,
yeah.
And he's one of the most creative, outspoken people in rap music, we must say. And we did a song called Fantasy, but it was just the remix. It wasn't on the album. So a lot of people who don't listen to hip-hop radio or who don't go to clubs wouldn't have known that. You know, I worked with DeBrat and Jermaine Dupri and those guys back then, too.
Right.
But it was always, you know, pretty much for a remix or something that was only catering to one audience, and the pop stations never heard it, or, you know, basically the people who watch the mass appeal, you know, shows on VH1 or something don't see the version with ODB and me, you know. So they saw me working with Puffy and working with different people on the Butterfly album, and they were like, what is this drastic change? You know, why is she with rappers suddenly? But really, it was something that I had. It
was an evolution from where you'd already begun.
Yeah, and I wasn't, you know, it wasn't like those versions were incorporated into the album then, because it was all about keeping it mass appeal. Yeah. So to me, we're at the year 2000. It is mass appeal. I mean, I've grown up listening to rap music. It's nothing new, you know. I mean, it's really been around for over 20 years. It's not a new thing.
And rhythm and blues longer.
Yeah. So I mean, my first song, Vision of Love, was #1 on the R&B charts first, then pop. So I mean, I think it went more. Everybody wanted me to go more pop because it's always easier to be mass appeal, you know. But that's boring to me. I can't just do that. It's really boring. Like, I would go crazy.
Right. Let me just stay where I want to come to this album, where this is and what this says in terms of the kinds of things you've just been talking. You and Tommy fell in love while you were partners. Mm-hmm. You know, and you lived in Bedford, and much has been written and said about that. Did you in any way feel, I mean, mainly, I mean, you were growing, you were becoming, you wanted to be your own person musically. Mm-hmm. You know, then there becomes the separation, and you come to New York City, and Butterfly's the first album?
Yeah, the first album after that. Yeah. It came out during that whole time.
What did it represent for you in your own mind? And an evolution, but a stretching?
It was something that it was like a lot of the lyrics on that album are almost, you know, they're things that I wished certain people would say to me. It's like, I still have to be politically correct when I speak about this, too. It's really hard to walk that line.
I know.
But
don't.
Yeah, it's really hard to walk the line. But Butterfly will always symbolize that moment in my life when I was breaking free. I was scared of a lot of things. I was...
But not scared of your talent. You knew your talent.
I believed in the album so much. I believed in that album, and it's still actually my favorite. If I could make my dream album of my own stuff, I would probably use some of the songs from this album, Rainbow, and some of the songs from Butterfly, because to me, it was just an expression of myself, and it was like, very real, and it was just it was a cathartic experience. It was like I had to do it. I had to release this whole thing.
Once you made this transition, was it difficult? I mean, after you got over the initial fear, after you made this album, after this album again produced a number one hit single, how did you feel then?
After this album, Rainbow, or Butterfly?
Butterfly. I mean, did you sense this is going to be okay? I mean, I've made this transition.
I felt okay. I mean, you know what? I'm still dealing with it.
Really?
Honestly, I'm still dealing with it. I felt amazing. I felt such a mixture of emotions. I mean, I really had gone from, yes, I was very independent at a very early age. I was living on my own as a teenager in New York City. You know, I didn't have a sheltered life as a child. I, you know, had kind of a lot of craziness and dysfunction surrounding me. But I was inexperienced with men. I wasn't, you know, I mean, so I went from being just like, I didn't have any boyfriends while I was in this transitional period of just writing and working and doing all that stuff. You know, I went basically from just having boyfriends like in high school, that meant, you know, that was the high school thing, to being involved with someone who was much older and a very, very strong person at the helm of my career. So when I came out of that with Butterfly, I guess I was feeling like a rebellious kid in a lot of ways, you know, but I was also like experiencing life, like, wow, what's going on?
Yeah.
What is this? I can actually go out, I can do this, I can
go places that I hadn't been doing before.
Yeah, and I mean, I just felt hanging out, because that's really me. I mean, if you could just go back to high school, that's how I was then. It's like, you know, I sort of had this lapse where I became somebody who I really wasn't, and it's sad, because if I had just been allowed to express myself more, or just been allowed to really, you know, be who I am, you know, go out more, be who I am, be a free spirit, because I was never looking to do anything. It's not like I was going out looking to. Yeah, you
weren't looking for guys, or you weren't.
No.
You just wanted to go out and experience what people your age were doing,
yeah,
and people in your profession were doing,
yeah,
just to experience the kind of sense of what it's like to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's part of the reason why I feel like I'm still grounded, is because I didn't experience fame when it initially happened to me. I didn't experience that whole thing where your brain gets twisted and you're like, I'm young and I'm famous and I'm going out and I'm doing this and I'm doing. I sort of went into this like, I was very sequestered in this whole, you know, just with everybody around me. It was very much like,
you're almost in a cocoon. Yeah,
and I'm not saying that to say anything negative about anybody else. I'm really not. I mean, it happened. It's over. We all are very successful. You know, we've all gained a lot from this.
And the partnership continues.
The
business partnership continues, and Tommy's been supportive and continues to say, you don't have a bigger fan in the world than he is.
Well, that's very nice.
Well, you knew that. I mean, is that true?
If he's, you know what? I don't know.
I know.
Maybe that was true at one point. I would like to think.
You like to believe that.
I would like to believe that.
You think he? I mean, you just said the most interesting thing is you just wanted to go out. I mean, I guess.
I just wanted to be myself. I wanted to be able to be who I am, which is like when we were talking about the video before, and there's a scene where I'm playing the bad girl with the black hair, and then we have the cat fight, and it's that whole comedic thing. That's a big part of who I am. I've always wanted to act. I always wanted to do different characters. I always wanted to show different sides of myself. You know, I grew up doing characters all my life. And it's like, you know, I was never really encouraged to show that I had a personality. You know, I was never encouraged to do things that were... I think that's why the success of this song, Heartbreaker, you know, a lot of it had to do with the video, because people were like, whoa, that's really... I can't believe Mariah is actually playing a different character, fighting with herself in the scene. It's really funny. And I think that's a big part of why people have this misconception about me, that I'm this... or maybe they don't have it anymore, but that I was this really bland, just sing up there, stand on stage.
Like sitting up in Bedford and then going to do
and other people probably think other people write my songs or do those things, and that's why when you showed me that magazine before.
Well, there's a store picture here, and you wanted to say, what's the store?
Well, okay, there's the picture.
Right.
It says...
It's this one, guys. Yes.
David LaChapelle. Okay.
Yeah.
You've got in here, you've got Sean Puffy Combs, mogul, rapper, producer, publisher, clothing manufacturer, record executive, pop star.
Right.
You've got Jewel. It says singer, poet, actress, da-da-da-da-da. Mariah Carey, singer, and it just
and
pisses
what you
me
want
off because I write my own songs, I produce my own records. How many songs do I have to write until I at least get that credited? I don't understand why people have a problem acknowledging that. I mean, I'm so involved in my own stuff. I wish I could relax, or somebody else would take over.
Yeah.
You know.
Not only that, you're taking acting lessons with Sheila Gray, I guess, and all for All That Glitters, and
for other projects.
And for other projects.
Yeah.
You're taking this sort of the whole process seriously, rather than simply saying, "Okay, I want to be in a movie because I'm a pop star."
Well, actually, yeah, it's not even about being in a movie to me. It's about the fact that it helped me as a creative person, as a writer, as a singer, in every way. As a human being, to study with Sheila, because she really helped bring out so much of me that I was blocking. I mean, I was going through my life really literally like being tense all the time and not dealing with my emotions, and it took like one session of me lying down on her floor and doing this relaxation exercise to burst into tears and realize that I was so out of touch with myself because I was just trying, I was in denial, you know, I was trying to live the life. I was really unhappy, and I was afraid, and I was just, you know, my life was a complete mess.
Yeah, is some of that still here? This sense of being afraid and sense of a little bit of still a mess.
Still a mess.
Well,
sometimes no, I'm laughing because I use that word all the time instead of joking. It's funny to hear you say it, but yeah, there's still a lot of mess that goes on. I feel like I have to be so in control of everything and so aware of what's going on with my career because it's different now. You know, we talked about the beginning, but since Butterfly, I've had to really, really take charge of every aspect of my life. And I'm happier because I'm happier with the end result, but it's also, you know,
a lot of responsibility.
It's a lot of responsibility.
You can't say there's somebody over there taking care of all that stuff.
Right.
And all I have to do
is
write songs and stand up and sing.
Yeah,
you know.
Exactly.
Now you got to think about the whole package because you now are in charge of Mariah.
Right.
And it's not necessarily have somebody looking after you for better or worse.
Well, before it was like, okay, can I wear this dress or am I going to get in trouble for this? Like, can I, you know, it was like, okay, I wasn't really focusing on how's the lighting on the, you know, floors looking on the show like I was yesterday. I was focusing on, can I get away with wearing this without getting in trouble for it? You know what I mean?
Yes,
and it was all just the stupidest, most minuscule stuff, but it was really, that was my thing. Like, that was my focus, was like, can I have a few minutes of peace? Can I talk to some friends on the phone? Can I maybe get a minute to myself? So that was more, you know, and I had a song called Looking In on the album Daydream, which basically a lot of my friends who heard it kind of started worrying about me after that because it was sort of expressing my unhappiness with my life. And those songs, I mean, when I write songs that are really honest, they come to me the quickest. And I have a song on this album, Rainbow, called Petals, where I'm sort of talking to some people who I don't speak to anymore, and I'm kind of trying to figure out why I made certain decisions in my life through this song, from beginning to end, and people who know me really can't listen to it because they know who it's about, different sections and what it is, and everybody pretty much cries when they hear it. And I was crying when I was singing it, but it's like I've learned, again, getting back to the acting thing, to be able to be free with my emotions and to be able to be in touch with my emotions. And I think that that's the most important thing that's come out of my studying acting. And it's very important for me. Yes, I would love
to be in touch with your own emotions.
To be in touch with my own emotions, be in touch with myself, to be able to be free, to be able to be less inhibited. I mean, until 2 years ago, I had to have one side of my freaking face covered or bangs or something all the time because I was always, you know, I was told that I didn't look right that way, or wearing a certain color would make me look too something, you know. I mean, it was always something playing on my insecurities. There was always, you know, that whole thing. I grew up insecure to begin with. I didn't need those things to be, you know, actually preyed upon.
But are you more and more confident in your own judgment about things because your instincts are being reinforced by the experience of trusting yourself?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Petals is the most difficult of these songs?
It's the most difficult. I think if I were to sing it live, I would be very emotional when singing it. But it was the quickest to write, and I had it in my head. And I brought it to Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, and we explained it. And it goes into this, segues into this rainbow interlude. And it goes from this really pretty miserable, it's actually a beautiful song, but it's very sad. And it goes into this optimistic interlude, and then it segues into a song called Thank God I Found You. And somebody said to me the other day, this is the first album you've made where you don't end on a sad song.
Yeah.
And I think that's positive.
Thank God I Found You is the last song here.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. It begins with Heartbreaker. What's the decision process to choose the song that gets the most attention from an album?
Like the first single,
yeah.
the second single?
Yeah. Do you decide that, or do you, in concert with your record producer, decide that?
Well, pretty much. This actually, the song Heartbreaker, I wrote for All the Glitters for the movie, and I had it, and I wanted to just put it out. I was like, I don't want to waste it. They pushed back the movie. I want to put it out, and you don't just put out a single. People just don't do that,
right.
And so that's why it has like that bouncy, fun, kind of retro-ish, cutesy feeling, but. I worked with DJ Clue, who's never actually collaborated with a singer before. He and I are friends. He played me the beat. And it was just obvious. There's some, certain things that are pretty obvious. And then the remix to that is actually written over a Snoop Dogg record with DeBrat and Missy
Snoop Dogg
Elliott.
is here, yeah.
Yes. So it's pretty much of an obvious thing. I always know my first single, pretty much.
You will always want to sing ballads?
Yeah. I mean, I love both. I don't want people to think, oh, now she's doing the hip-hop thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like that at all. It's just that now...
She's just trying to make sure she's with it.
Yeah, not at all. It's just that, I mean, if I'm going to do an up-tempo, I want it to be hot. I don't want it to be some boring, thing that I don't like. I mean, so I'd rather... What I tried to do with this album is incorporate the ballads with the songs that are more, the up-tempo records, and use... interludes to kind of segue between them so that you wouldn't feel this jolting thing, So, I mean, I told you about the cover of Against All Odds. It's pretty hard to go from a record with Missy Elliott and Brat, that's a loop of a Snoop Dogg record,
right,
to Against All Odds. But because working with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, who are really genius at figuring out interludes, and we really had a great musical partnership, we kind of figured out how to make these transitional pieces that would make the album work. And I think sequencing this album was really important. And I tried to kind of tell a story in the sequencing and make it all kind of make sense.
When you dream now about the future, what do you dream about? When you fantasize about, when obviously acting is part of it, because it's an extension.
Yes.
So it won't just say singer, it'll say singer, songwriter, musician, producer, actress.
That would be nice.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
But do you think of other musical, where are you going musically?
Well, again...
Because you're all of a sudden performing, and associating yourself with a rather extraordinary group of people in terms of music today.
Right. Well, I mean, it's funny because working with artists that I love, that I'm inspired by, too, I mean, I've worked with Brat a number of times. Missy and I have worked together. This is the first time I worked with Jay-Z and also Snoop. And that's the thing that people don't realize. It's like we're all musicians. We're all influenced by each other's work. So it's not such a stretch. And people, often like a rapper will have 5 guest rappers on their album or 4 guest vocalists. It's not a big deal in R&B or in hip-hop. It's just in the pop world, people don't understand that it's... I mean, I don't listen to pop radio. I really don't. I listen to older music, like my favorite classics, or I'll listen to...
Like what?
Like Aretha Franklin, Stevie Wonder, Minnie Riperton, songs that I grew up with, or hip hop radio, or whatever's hot. So it's like where I feel I'm going musically. Actually, my next project is the soundtrack for All the Glitters, which is set in the 80s. It's set in 1981. So hopefully, I'm going to be working with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, and we're going to be executive producing it together. And I spoke to Rick James. I'm going to try to make it really like a retro kind of 80s album, which is actually works with what's going on musically today because everybody's sampling records from the 80s anyway. So, I mean, that's my next project musically.
Do you sense the power you have? I mean, do you know how much power you have? Or do you look at it and say, I don't know, those words don't mean anything to me because, I mean, you're out there. You were nervous about being alone, even though you can afford to hire the best talent around and afford to associate yourself, and they want to be associated with you because of this amazing track record you've had in this decade. It gives you power, right?
I guess. I mean, it's so funny because I don't feel like that. I think there's always something in me that will remain the little kid who always felt like the rug could be pulled out from under them, you know, because I moved around like 10 or 12 times with my mom when I was little, and I didn't really have, she was a great, stable, amazing force in my life, but everything else was kind of like, you know, and then I went into the other situation, and now I'm just coming out of it.
Right. You still are just coming out of it, aren't you? I mean, that comes through to me loud and clear. That
well,
it's not easy
yeah.
to have that kind of experience.
Right.
You know, and to have somebody play that significant a role and feel some sense to be free. And you, as I hear you, wanted to be free within the confines of that relationship, right?
Yeah, I would have been happy with that. But, you know, I don't want to, it's really hard because I don't want to come across like I'm saying negative things. Like, people really, really want to twist it and make it like I'm being negative or whatever. I mean, there were very positive things, you know, that happened within that relationship for both of us, you know, and it's just difficult because still being involved in a business capacity is really, really hard. I mean, it's really, really...
Because there's so many memories.
Because it's just drama. Yeah. It's just drama all the time. And, I mean, I would love to be able to feel like there's a nice, happy medium in a friendship because I'm not the type of person, I don't like change. I don't like losing people. I don't like, you know, I keep friends if they mean something to me. They're a part of my family for the rest of my life. So it's like the whole thing is sad. You know, it's a difficult situation. It's difficult to talk about. It's difficult to deal with. The whole thing is just pretty bizarre.
But do you think you'll find that medium place, hopefully?
I guess. I mean, I think people are always going to ask me about it. I'm always going to have to walk a fine line with it. And so I hope so, you know.
Are you at the place, and this is my last question about relationships, only because of you, and we've talked about music, that you're open to relationships now? Have you gotten to that point?
Yeah.
Because whoever you're associated with, whether it's, I mean, you can be seen at an event with someone, and all of a sudden, it's the new man in Mariah's life.
It's a complete
it can be,
mess.
yeah. I mean, and all of, that's not comfortable for anybody.
No, it's totally not comfortable.
I mean, it's not natural for anybody.
No, not at all.
I mean, and almost gives, it puts something that might have a chance, doesn't have a chance, because everybody wants to define it from the first moment they see you, and especially if it's another celebrity.
Right.
I mean, they just want to jump on it rather than giving it time to breathe. You know, and if there's anything you want, is time to breathe.
Exactly.
You know,
so,
time to be yourself and to breathe and to heal and do all those stuff.
Exactly.
Right?
But they don't want to give you that time, Charlie.
Yeah, they don't want to.
No, but you know what? What I realized is you have to just be secure. I mean, the public and the media or whatever will attack a relationship and make it into, you know, drive people crazy. And it really takes somebody really secure to be able to handle that kind of thing. So I'm really actually very happy in a relationship right now with someone who is also, he's an entertainer, very big Latin superstar. His name is Luis Miguel, and he's great.
I read about that, but I didn't.
Yeah. No, but I'm bringing it up because he's so secure within himself with what he does, and, you know, even to the point where people are like, do an English album. He's not doing an album in English because he doesn't need to. He's not a follower. He doesn't have to follow the trend of that right now. And he's great because he understands this craziness of my life because he's got the same thing. I mean, there's very few people who you can be like, okay, well, I'm about to go on stage now and sing in front of 50,000 people, so I'll call you back when I'm done. Or, you know, who understand, okay, well, there's, you know, people doing my hair and makeup, and, you know, you're trying to, like, lie in bed, but there's a million people running in and out with wardrobe. So, you know, I think I've come to a good place, and I think that this is helping me feel for the first time like I'm in a supported, nice place, you know, because it's not just about, okay, wow, here we have this, let's romanticize and make something into, you know, this perfect picture romance. It's like, care about me as a human being, not because whatever.
In the end, too, you know what you've got that's extraordinary. You've got your music, you know, and you've got your talent. I remember once I had a conversation with someone, and in a very different way, but they were talking about, you know, tough times, and they said, you'll always have your talent,
yeah.
You know, no matter how bad things get or how good things get.
Right.
At the core is that sort of belief in self and talent.
Right.
You know, and each year I assume you grow more confident of that and more wanting to expand and grow and try new things and be all that you can be.
Well, there's actually a song on the album called Can't Take That Away, which also is called Mariah's Theme in parentheses, which is funny that you mentioned that because it was when I was dealing with some drama and I felt really a lot of opposition. I felt like I needed to get this off my chest. And I wrote this song, and it says they can't take that away from me. You know, it's about finding an inner peace, and no matter what else happens around you, holding on to that and knowing that nobody can touch that. And I also was really inspired by the negative stuff that's happened this past year with kids, and, you know, and I really wanted to give that message, mostly, you know, to kids. And when I did my special the other night, I was talking about it to them, you know, because it's important. Because when you're in high school or junior high, if your friend gets mad at you, or if you're not in the right group, or if you're, you know, you don't look the same way as everybody else, you can feel like that's the end of the world. And this song, I think, I hope will inspire, you know, some kids to feel okay about themselves, even if they're not the ultimate, ideal, perfect jock or cheerleader or whatever it is.
It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
Mariah Carey, this album has all the things that we have talked about here. It is going to be released today, Rainbow, 5 million copies, and I'm sure you can find it in your favorite music store or somewhere on the internet. It's been fun for me. Thank you for coming.
It's been very nice. Thanks
Mariah
for
Carey for the hour. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.